this meeting to order of the Cedarburg Board of Education. This is Monday, April 24th, 2017. This is the regular meeting of the Cedarburg Board of Education. It's a public meeting, and notices have been placed throughout the district, as well as the news graphic in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And at this time, I'd like you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have seen that we swore in our two newest, our newest and our oldest board in more ways than one. But anyway, along with that, these two gentlemen were just elected to go back to Kevin Kennedy. And at this time, we'll take nominations for president, vice president, clerk, treasurer, and school board secretary.
Can I make a nomination?
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Chris Ramber as board president.
Second. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'd like to nominate Jeff Bray as vice president.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Brandon Goldbeck as clerk.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
See that smile, Brandon, huh?
There's a bigger one here, right?
I'd like to nominate David Crew for treasurer.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. And then we have the school board secretary, and I'd like to nominate Brendan Rowland.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Excellent. Now, the next two items on the agenda are the board committees, which is committee structure and committee assignments. And there are several items on here. Since there hasn't been any turnover on the board, and we are in the midst of different cycles of whether it's our budget or curriculum or policy review, unless I hear differently, I will just leave the committees as they are. And we also have the special assignments and city school liaison, negotiations committee, WASB delegate, CC1 board rep, and I will leave those the same unless anyone would like to change.
Someone will like the last week, I believe, it's going to be the same week again. I am going to be on the state for the convention. It's the same week as it always is.
Okay.
Unless someone else just wants to do everything and show us the others.
Would anyone like to fill in as the WASB delegate? Northwest Mutual Life is only 2 blocks away. I'm going to be here anyhow.
I will do that.
That is excellent.
You think just for the convention, for
However you want to do it, doesn't matter.
All right, then, I'll take a motion to nominate Kevin as the WASB delegate.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Anyone else have any other thoughts, wishes? Keep going. You're too good at that.
Nobody's going to second that one.
All right, well, if you gentlemen have any second thoughts, anything you'd like to change, or an alternate on something that you're not, so forth, please let me know, and then we'll work through that accordingly. So with that said, we're going to move on to resolutions and recognitions, proclamations. Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Gray.
Boy, this doesn't have it.
Oh my gosh.
following proclamations. Month of Military Child, the month of April. Money Smart Week, Wisconsin, April 22nd through April 29th, 2017. Proclamations are posted on the district website.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, sir.
And then we'll move on to Scholastic Art Competition winner. Adam?
Thank you, Board. We would like to congratulate to our CHS Scholastic Art Award winner, Jules Reisling, who is a winner of a silver medal at the national level in the Scholastics Art Competition. Her piece titled A Child's Concept was created digitally on the Cintiq monitors. A very cool piece and continues to show our students' talent in so many different ways. Very impressive.
And then the next item, the Cedarburg High School boys varsity basketball team.
Yeah, if you'll remember, I think last board meeting, we shared a lot of our winter celebrations from our athletics and activities. We held off on the boys basketball team because they were continuing to play at that time. And now we can celebrate their success for the year. They had a tremendous season, falling just short, losing by 2 points in the state championship game to La Crosse Central. A tremendous run. I believe there was a streak of 3 games where they won by a total of 5 points. So tremendously fun to watch, and lost a hard-fought battle in the end in the state final game on Saturday night in the Cole Center. So congratulations on a tremendous effort in an incredible season 2. Victor Novi, Jake Levy, John Diener, Jordan Johnson, Mitchell Strobel, Jared Short, Hunter Lewis, Matthew Barber, Chuck Willer, Clayton Van Tassel, Quinn Model, Jake Salzman, and Patrick McKenzie. And a huge congratulations to Coach Tom Diener taking the Cedarburg boys basketball team all the way. It's his 3rd team to the state finals game. Impressive career, and we're happy that he was able to do it here. And very impressed with our community and our students. For those of you who saw it, to see the 16 fan buses line up and the 1,000 students in orange shirts showing their pride and supporting our students was really impressive. Fun to watch, just an awesome sight. Fun to watch our team really galvanize our community and our student body, and a huge congratulations to them on their season.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, moving right on to the consent agenda.
Thank you. Board members, in your packet, there are 3 items to be approved as part of the consent agenda. The first would be the minutes from the March 15, 2017 school board meeting. The second item is the financial statement, which includes information of the summary of accounts, check register, check detail, and credit card transaction reports. And the third would be the personnel report, which Conrad will give you a brief update.
Thank you. I'll start at the bottom. Since the last board meeting, we've added support staff members Timothy Chapman as custodian, Judith Maxfield as an accounting clerk, and Amanda Pagano as a paraprofessional. We also have had some support staff members indicate they will either be finishing their time with the district at the end of this year, or they have terminated more immediately. Richard Anderson, custodian, Jennifer Dolzar, paraprofessional, Megan Ellers, instructional aide, and Mark Matter, custodian. And we're very excited this evening to present with you an administrative contract. We had 31 applications. It was a very deep pool for this position. Out of the 31, 6 very strong candidates were brought in for interviews. And out of those 6, we selected our own John Hannum to be the athletic director for the Cedarburg High School Bulldogs. He's been in the district for 11 years, done a number of things for the district, between assistant coaching in football and basketball. He's also been a department chair. And he earned this by demonstrating that he's going to be the best person to lead the athletics and activities for Cedarburg for the upcoming years. So we're happy to recommend a contract for John this evening.
Excellent.
So we'd ask approval of the consent agenda, and then we'll have John say a few words.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. John, congratulations. Welcome to the district. I should say welcome to the district. You've been a part of the district. Welcome to the district.
When you bring the family, you get to give speeches with Spider-Man back. Some special guests here tonight, and my beautiful wife, Allison.
Allison, celebrating this on her birthday today. Have my son Jackson, who will be attending 4K next year at Thorson, and our daughter Josie here, who's coming up on 5 months. So just a few quick words I'd like to say here. This is very special to me because most of you, or some of you might not be aware that I'm actually a graduate of the district here, and I graduated in 1999. I was a 3-sport athlete. Was fortunate enough to go to state in 2 sports. I was all conference in 2 sports, and above those things, I just had so many great relationships with the coaches and teachers I had here, and that's what I wanted to embody in our athletic department here, above all, above winning and losing. And that's what attracted me back to CHS when I initially started at Nicolay here. And as an athletic director, I'm very excited to work with Ann Weaver, who's here tonight. I'm very excited. And I want to build on the great foundation that's already in place here, and I'm excited now that this is official to engage with the stakeholders around the community to hear how we can make our department that much better than it already is. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilson.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Good luck.
Thanks. Thank you.
Should grab the lead since it's your wife's birthday.
Unless you want to sleep up.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 7, superintendent's notes.
Board members, before we jump into the presentation from People Services, I just want to draw your attention to the posters that are on the wall. There's someone I believe, and these posters were made by our elementary students at each of the 3 buildings, and they were actually for our Rotary luncheon last Thursday. I gave a presentation at Rotary, and in Rotary they have paper tablecloths, and so the kids made these decorated these tablecloths just to say thank you to the Rotary members for their support of the school system and the community support. So I just want to draw your attention to those. It's very nice of them to take the effort right after spring break to spend some time and put those together and present those to the Rotarians on Thursday. And our very own Rotarian president's right here, Brandon, so he was able to experience his posters twice. Tonight we have People Services presentation. We have Director of People Services Ted Noel, who's going to provide some insight into the Student Services program, and he's been spending a great deal of time with individuals in his department, the principals, teachers that are all connected to kids, and talking about their well-being and how we ensure that kids are really balanced when they are ready to prepare to tackle scholastics here in our district. And so Ted's going to be spend a few minutes making a presentation. So he has a PowerPoint, so board members we may need to relocate. Ted, sounds good.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. I do an update to the board twice a year for the area of student services. In the fall, when I was visiting with you, we talked about our supports for gifted learners, students who have advanced learning needs in mathematics. We talked a little bit about the workshop model and how we support students in different grades with different types of interventions. Shifting gears for the spring, we're going to talk a little bit about supporting students with behavior and social and emotional learning needs. And I'll give the board a little bit of an opportunity to transition before we get started. PBIS, or positive behavior interventions and supports, isn't or shouldn't be new to many of the board members, but I'm going to do a little bit of just an overview as we move forward. There we go. As we enter, just in case, refreshers are always good. So this is a system. It's a national profile in terms of how school districts approach and respond to student behaviors in schools. So I'll give a little bit of an overview. I'll explain some PBS Tier 2 trainings that have occurred this school year. We have completed several years of PBS Tier 1 training and with fidelity, so it was time to move on. And then now that we're entering tier 2, we have to look a little bit beyond that and then what we want to do in terms of a profile and supports for our students who aren't responding to tier 2 level services. So what is PBS? PBS is a school or district systems change process around behavior. It improves the links between the practices and how they are used in the classroom environments. So this is all about supporting students in the integrated or the natural environments in which they are, which is the classrooms. And it enhances the capacity of schools through behavior systems to improve student learning outcomes. That's our goal, is to increase the capacity of our learners and our teachers to support them. So that's what this is all about. It's about sustaining and creating supports for all children by making problem behavior less effective and relevant, and the desired behavior more functional. That's purely what it is. As we look at, I think you remember we saw the green, yellow, and red triangle in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 for academics. This is the same in terms of how we look at it in a behavioral support as well. Tier 1, universal for all students. Tier 2, targeted groups for some students, and tier 3, individual supports for a few students. So that's, again, about improving results. This is that green, red, and yellow triangle. 80 to 90% of the kids are supported in that universal level with just the general supports that we give all students. As we move into tier 2, they don't respond to those supports in tier 1, so we give them a little bit something different. And then if we're still struggling to get them where we need them, we move up into a different level of support, which is that red tip of the triangle. That's tier 3. This works for both academic and behavior. We keep data and we make decisions based on how they're doing within those areas. So tier 1 supports move the system from a reactive approach to a system of proactive approaches, cohesively uniting all of the adults and using common language, common practices, and consistent applications of reinforcement. As for those, all board members have had children in our system, so they've seen this going on for some time. Not new to them, but that's really what this system or tier 1 support is all about. Teaching behavioral expectations in the same manner as any core curriculum subject. As we integrate it into the classroom, focus on 3 to 5 behavioral expectations that are positively stated and easy to remember. Rather than telling students what not to do, the school focuses on the preferred behaviors. Respect yourself, respect others, and respect property. You see those placards in all of our buildings. All of our buildings have these types of common language and supports for kids. That's pretty typical for all our buildings. The RISE program over at Webster, their classroom matrix, respect individual, self, and environment. There's Tony and Ben sporting their banner of distinction from 15-16, very proud of that. So this is something that every building has, a RISE or a classroom matrix of behavior and expectations. That's a part of a tier 1 support. Over at Thorson, they have the Thorson Jaguar Jumpstart. Those of you have had kids over at Thorson, you're very familiar with this, where they explain what it is, what they're doing, but this is really kind of the core of that tier 1 is where you're really unifying how we're looking at behavior through these meetings and expectations. And then Angela Little's staff developed the What is PBS for Parents. Is basically a primer in case you're new to the building and are familiar with what is going on. We've done a great job with tier 1. We've had 4 buildings most recently. Webster, Parkview, Thorson, and West Lawn all received awards of merit. So when you get to a point when you are to full fidelity of receiving awards, it's time to move on to the next piece because they're doing a great job with it. So that kind of precipitated, let's look at tier 2 because we have some kids that need some additional supports and we're doing a great job with tier 1. So PBS Tier 2 training occurred on these 4 dates. Well, we partnered with Whitefish Bay for 2 purposes. One, for cost efficiency, but second, it is always great to do training with another school district to get a different perspective and look on life. We are very similar in some ways in terms of our student population and performance, and so it was great for us to have 2 different staffs get together and have the same training and share perspectives back and forth in terms of how they are approaching the different things. That was really a valuable experience. That was in our CPAC black box, in case you're wondering the odd look to it. So it's a great training space. It just doesn't take a great picture. Just so people are aware, the team structures in the district for PBS, it is a beefy process. It takes a lot of doing, it takes a lot of people power. So oversight at the district level, I provide as the Director of Student Services. Our external coaches, which are part of the structure, are our school psychologists. They provide oversight for the district and individual buildings. I work closely with them and the principals. And then each of the tier 1 and tier 2 structures need different people if they can. Sometimes there's some overlap between the two teams, and that's a combination of principals, teachers, and counselors. And sometimes other people will jump in there like paraprofessionals as well, depending on what their staff looks like. So Tier 2 support is designed to provide intensive or targeted interventions to students who are not responding to Tier 1. And we do have a group of students, and just like anybody else in public schools, we have students who need a little bit something extra. Tier 2 is more extensive since a smaller number of students requiring services from within the yellow part of the triangle, remember that's right in the middle, are at risk for engaging behaviors and more serious problem behaviors, and they need a little bit extra support. So it's really getting on the proactive end of how to help students build supports and strengths within themselves, so when they move up in the grades, they are more ready to learn. Common Tier 2 supports involve small groups of students or simple individualized intervention strategies. So during this Tier 2 training, just kind of some of the things we spent a lot of time talking about: establishing a collective sense of purpose and commitment to guide and sustain the Tier 2 implementation, examine current Tier 1 status, need for improvement in connection with Tier 2 practices, define roles and key staff members who will cover responsibilities, and select and apply a continuous improvement cycle to guide decision making. So you might say, wow, it took 4 days to do this, but it's really an intensive process. They want to make sure schools have all the tools and necessary supports to move this forward. Staff all have all the needed information they can gather before they move forward. Because if, again, this is a fidelity process. If staff aren't properly trained, you kind of spin your wheels and you aren't making the necessary improvements. So in addition, creating a plan for how the team will enhance check-in, check-out. Check-in, check-out is one of the mainstays of Tier 2. Social academic instruction groups. Teams will need to develop and refine plans for that, including the intervention features that are 6 of those, training and supporting the staff that do those. And then create a plan for how the team will develop or refine mentoring, which is also another big part of the program in Tier 2. So again, this is about changing behavior, but again, this another piece is about establishing strong relationships with staff internally, if you see the theme there. So this isn't about a counselor coming in doing stuff. This is about classroom teachers having capacity and building strong relationships with students so they can help them move forward with whatever they need. That's where the best intervention occurs, right where the student knows the teacher the best. Again, this is a system-level process, and these systems, a lot of discussions around decision-making about who and how these things happen, the effectiveness, the assessment data, the modifications to support students. There's a lot of discussion about what they're going to do and what decision-making will occur in terms of when they do it. We spent a lot of time talking about how we analyze behavior and collect that data for those students in Tier 2 and how to create those plans. So this is not something you just start in and kind of do it randomly. Lots of systematic thought goes behind it and doing all these different things so that we're not wasting or spinning our wheels in terms of time and both student and staff time. So it's purposeful, it's intentional, it's very targeted to what students need. In case you're wondering, was that all about Tier 2? No, there's many other things we can talk about, but we start with things that have the biggest impact, how to build student-teacher relationships and impact students immediately. These are just a variety of things that happen in Tier 2 as we grow in fidelity over the next few years in terms of our program growth. These are the things we're going to kind of continue to focus on. Here is Parkview's PBS Tier 1 and Tier 2 work moving forward. As each building filled this out for me, so I got a sense of where they are. And you see they're going to continue to do work in Tier 1 with staff, and then continue to move forward with Tier 2. Lots of check-in, check-out, as you can see, is the mainstay of this part of the program, as well as building staff capacity about Tier 2. Like any systematic or system-wide initiative, this is going to take some time, and it takes a lot of staff development around it. Our staff are trained as a trainers models, so our staff were brought up on the process, and they'll go back in their buildings and then move their individual buildings forward on it. So we have some check-in, check-out presenters from West Lawn. We've got Andy, Gerke, and Johnny. They're going to talk about how they built their relationship through check-in, check-out, and how it supports Johnny and his learning at West Lawn. So why don't you guys come up, and I got a little stool here. I was gonna let Ben get on it.
Well, thanks for having us. I'm just gonna kind of hang out and ask a few questions, kind of like a talk show host. But one of the last board meetings, Parker made a presentation about student goal setting, and that is so often focused on academics, but also I've got a goal setting rock star right here, and there are some things that Johnny knew that he could work on to help him set some goals that would help him academically and socially at school. So, this is Johnny. So Johnny, can you tell us about your daily dolphin, which Mrs. Gerke just handed out? Can you tell the group about your daily dolphin a little bit?
Every single morning I go to Mrs. Gerke and we talk about what am I going to do to get all twos, and if I get a 1 or 0, we can talk about at the end of the day when I go down to her. We can talk about how I can turn it around.
Awesome. And how did you pick your greeter, Johnny?
Because my friend, he told me a lot about her, and he told me that she's very nice and she's very nice at doing stuff.
And that's cool because you're in 2nd grade and Mrs. Gerke's a 5th grade teacher, so that's a pretty far way down the building, so that was pretty awesome. Mrs. Gerke, what does your morning check-in time with Johnny look like?
Where do we do that, Jen? We do that in the morning. We do it in the gym, and then at the end of the day, I go to Mrs. Gerke's room and I check out with her.
So we have the morning pods at West Lawn, and we just take about, what did you say, 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
Probably.
As Johnny's leaving the gym after the morning pod, we take about 30 seconds to check in. I ask him what he needs. Sometimes he needs a
smiley face and a stop sign.
Sometimes he needs a stop sign reminder. We just put it on top. We talk about having a good day. We always knuckle, and I say, you got this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Johnny, how do you think check-in, check-out has helped you?
It really helped me to control my anger and me not getting really mad.
You got that little stop sign reminder?
Yes.
And he has been a rock star. I mean, he is meeting his goal all the time, earning, I believe, lunch, right? With your
Yes.
special greeter friend?
Yes.
And tonight you told me I could come too, so made my night.
It's pretty cool at the end of the day that he gets to come down into the 5th grade class and check out with me. He's got some pretty close 5th grade friends now too as a result of that.
Yeah.
So what do you get out of this experience, Mrs. Gerke?
Well, look at this handsome guy that came out with. It's just been very rewarding to see Johnny have success because he's a good kid. So anything that I can do to help him have good days and get twos, that's our goal.
Yes.
And now I get to have lunch with him, so it's a win-win.
Woohoo!
Now my goal for you, Johnny, you don't even know this yet, I keep giving you more jobs. If we have other students, I know, who might need some help, I think you're ready to be the leader for them and explain the process to them and give them those knuckles, and I think you're ready for that. Does that sound good?
And I'm already helping my friend Nolan that he's doing it too.
Giving reminders.
Yep.
Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Mrs. Gerke. Thank you.
So just an example of some of the great work that's gone on, just not even a year into the process, and people are already moving ahead and doing some really cool things with the training we've been given and are engaging in. So kind of tier 3, next steps to consider. We'll spend some more time working on tier 2. Lots of work to do there. There's no doubt we'll probably spend a few years or more building supports and fidelity of those supports in our buildings. But kind of the bigger presence of things in my world that I work on every day for our students in Cedarburg And so I was kind of visioning, okay, what are all those things that I need to be thinking about that keep me up at night in terms of the supports kids' needs and moving the district forward and supporting them. And so kind of like, what are the mental health wellness needs of the Cedarburg School District? What are those for our students? Remember, this is moving up into the red part of that triangle. So green is the universal, yellow is for some, and red is for the few. So we're focusing on some, and I'm starting to vision out how we're going to support the few. So, and then what should the components of a Cedarburg school mental wellness model and framework contain? Many districts now are starting to think about this in a bigger sense. The profile or the need of students in our schools is in terms of mental health is growing exponentially by the year. They've been doing more and more studies around mental health, and even though Cedarburg is not in the place of some other districts in terms of needing such a huge profile, but it is something that we need to, at least in my role, pay some attention to in terms of supporting our students. So that's what I've been thinking about a little bit. So universal supports for all students around mental wellness, relationship building, resiliency, and rich social and emotional learning, trauma-sensitive practices for teachers and staff. One of the biggest things I see when I walk in the buildings and work with teachers and staff is the capacity for working with students sometimes, especially with those pretty significant mental health problems. And so that is something that I'm already visioning out in my head, is because a lot of times just approach and how do we understand an approach. And so that's something I'm thinking more about, and that's where that trauma-sensitive practices comes in. And then mental health and wellness education, what does that look like for our district, for staff and even students as they approach some of their classes? So selective supports for some, early identification, screening, and progress monitoring. That's part of PBIS, and we need better understanding of where our students come from who are really struggling with some of these things. Effective individual and group interventions, mental wellness plans for students in needs, and co-planning strategies with students, families, and community providers are all things that are part of a strong mental wellness or health framework. And then those intensive supports for a few students. Counseling and support teams, emotional regulations plans and reentry plans, referral and follow-up processes with service providers. There was recently, I saw reading an article on mental health and student adolescent child and adolescent development, and public schools are the #1 mental health provider in the United States, just because we are who we are. We have students from all walks of life, and we're being that we're the #1 mental health provider, we are unfortunately the most understaffed and trained for it. And so many of our students, not so much in Cedarburg, but a lot of students across the United States, and some in Cedarburg, don't have complete access to a lot of the care they need. So the more we build our capacity with staff, the better off we're going to be in terms of how to help students move forward in their lives. So I spent some time this past year sitting with our school psychologists and counselors, doing a gap analysis off of a mental health wellness framework in terms of things that we might want to look at as we move forward in the district. These are just kind of thoughts. These aren't firm plans. Lots of planning to do around this, but around foundations, selected supports, and systems of care. Just some thoughts here. School-wide team using a leadership model around PBS, community providers, integrating social emotional learning, mental health, suicide prevention, alcohol and drug prevention, and treatment guide, comprehensive school mental health, professional development for all school staff, identifying needs of mental health supports, and families are part of the regular information sharing and understanding available school supports and services for student mental health needs. One of the biggest things I do in my job is coordinate these services for families and connect the right systems and supports together with our counselors and psychologists. So that's a huge thing, is sometimes just getting the right people connected together, doing good work that needs to be done. If there's not many days that go by where I don't get a phone call from one of our support staff or our principals about a student in crisis, and often involves missing school, truancy, things like that. So that's where I see it impacting students most, is their ability not only to engage in the classroom, but even to get into the building sometimes. Some other things that we need to think about too is staff having the resources and training to effectively communicate with families about a student's social emotional development. School staff having the knowledge, training, and resources about how to refer students for services. Families are central to the efforts to prevent future mental health problems. So a lot of this is connecting, but also helping families understand and work with students. And how to help us work with them as well, because it is an integrated partnership. Care coordination and wraparound services, that's the biggest thing. The number one key to providing good services is having a high wraparound service for students. And so often when I get a call and we go into a building around a problem, there's a couple things that aren't going on, and the systems aren't talking to each other. And that's something I see all the time, as we can usually get some things moving in the right direction if we get together, co-plan and co-service and coordinate things. And then school level teams guiding the work frequently communicates with students, families, and community mental health professionals and pupil services staff. So a bigger perspective just in terms of the work we're doing for all students, and then some work we're doing for some and fewer numbers of students, and just a little bit of a thought in terms of as we're seeing students struggle more with some mental health features, how to help our staff better serve those students and provide the needed interventions and supports right within those classrooms. It's nothing in terms of additional this, that, and a lot of other things. A lot of it is providing the classroom teachers those individual knowledge and interventions. Any questions for me?
Just say, Johnny, I'm really proud of you. You're doing a great job. And I think with the tier 2 stuff, the whole idea is not tier 3.
Right.
Right? And one of my children, Johnny, the same thing you're doing, it really works. So, and I think the earlier we recognize the need before it really manifests itself. How do you do that? How do you recognize it before it becomes a problem?
Usually we see some level of disengagement around instruction, difficulties with social participation, not having fun at school, not coming to school, not enjoying their time at school. And you often see it just, and sometimes it just goofing around or not really getting down to doing the basics, And unfortunately, the more longer that occurs, the farther they fall behind academically. So our goal is getting that ahead of time so that as they move through the grades, their academics are strong, so that they're more prepared for high school. I mean, that's our end box, to make sure every kid graduates at the highest level possible. And this is what this is all about, is putting those supports in early so we don't have to worry about this in middle and high school.
So how are we going at getting that training for all of our staff? I mean, the police department's sending every officer 40 hours of crisis intervention training. So what are we doing in-house to try to address? So we identify before we come.
Right, so that's the trauma-sensitive schools and that approach. Police forces, EMTs, fire departments, a lot of community, Port Washington, Southfield School District, they're doing a lot of trauma-sensitive schools practices or community practices. Invest, I think is the name, or the Cultivate up in Port Washington with Dr. Mike Weber, the superintendent up there. It's something our psychologists and I are working on right now. We've gone through prepared training, which is a reactive type of thing, and we've gone through some different things. And so now the next thing is become trainers, the psychologists and counselors, so we can come back and work with our staff around these practices.
So I just want to say thanks for the presentation, and we know if we want students to be engaged in the classroom, we have to make certain that all their needs are taken care of. These are some of the needs that we have to make sure we address. One of the pillars board members on our strategic plan is student engagement and development. And this fits well under that pillar to ensure that our students are ready to be engaged and ready to develop. So thank you very much, Ted, for all the work that you're doing on this. It's very important work, and it's definitely needed. Chris, just to echo, John, you did a wonderful job presenting, and when your teacher was speaking with you, you were looking her right in the eyes, and you're an awesome listener. That's a great skill to have, being a good listener. People my age and people who are my age aren't good listeners, and they look around when people are talking to them, and you were looking right in their eyes, and that's a great skill, a great talent, great attribute to have as a young man. And even more importantly, that you're encouraging your friends. You said you have a friend who you're encouraging to behave appropriately and to make good choices. That's awesome. That's great leadership. So thank you very much, Johnny, for all you're doing, and the best of luck. I know you're going to be outstanding student. And I hope to see you back here when you're in middle school and high school doing a different presentation, something else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Annie and Johnny, thank you so much for coming.
I'd like to move on to item number 8, and actions to approve donations.
We have two donations this evening, board members. The first, I ask the board to take action for the donation of $560 from the CHS Fine Arts Boosters. This donation will be used by the CHS Music Department for the 2016-17 school year.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
The second donation, I ask the board to approve the donation of $500 from Olson's Bigby Wiggly. The donation will be used by the CHS Jazz Band program for the 2016-17 school year.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Moving on, item B, action to approve critical non-discrimination and self-evaluation report.
So I'm going to turn this over to Ted. This is a report that every 5 years, every school district in the state in Wisconsin has to go through and conduct this self-audit, and Ted has details. And I think board members, I know in your board packet on board docs, which we're all thrilled to have, there was a cover sheet that gave you or provided you some background information on the report. I think the report's over 35 pages, so I don't know that everybody spent the weekend looking at the 35 pages of the report. But that summary sheet does a great job of just capturing the highlights of the report. So Ted, any additional details that you want to provide regarding the report?
No, it's just Wisconsin District Code requires that every school district evaluate and prepare a report on the status of the non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunities in the school district. It's called self-evaluation of the status of non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunities versus at once at least every 5 years, and so that's what we did. And we particularly worked around the methods, practice, curriculum, and choose counseling, trends and patterns in awarding scholarships and other forms of recognition and achievement provided or administered by the school district, and participation trends and patterns and school district support of athletic, extracurriculars, and recreational activities. So we engaged in a months-long process. Just before I start, I'd like to publicly thank all the evaluators or parts of the team, and that starts with Mr. McMahon, myself, Alan Grove, Dave Pentek, Tony DeRosa, Dan Rutledge, Adam Kirk, Nicole Picker, Pat Sorensen, Brooklyn Jusnicker, Betsy Pelishek, Diane Jacobowski, Pam Geiser, Tim Levinsky, Greg Johnson, Jill Jansen, Beth Fry, Jane Polk, Angela Little, and Katie Ramos. Also, Ann Weaver and the two secretaries of Brett Webster, and a variety of other people helped us collect data. So it was a monstrous undertaking. And after all said and done, it was a good evaluation. We had a few slight things we needed to pay attention to or correct. Those are on page 17 of your report. We were missing, didn't have a complete non-discrimination summary on our career and technical education report. And we had slight imbalances, so the recommendation was to continue to monitor athletics and activities on an annual basis, review data over at least a 3-year period, segregated by the watch trends that be developed and take corrective action if necessary. Again, this is looking at equity and accountability and equal access. And then the next one was to continue to monitor scholarships on an annual basis. And there was a slight difference in the others. So all very minor stuff, considering addition to 3,200 students. This was a very clean evaluation, lots of good stuff happening within our system.
How would we have an effect on scholarships at post-high school? Is that what you're referring to?
No, those are ones that we offer through the school district. They're through our high school cash department. I've already spoken with them. It's just that we need to get a bigger presence. We make sure that we're advertising all students and encouraging all students to apply.
Okay.
They have an interest or opportunity.
Okay.
So it's those before they beat us for ones they get an application or for an outside source.
And this is required by the federal government, correct, every 5 years, every school district has to do it.
Correct.
And we don't, not that we wouldn't want to, but if we didn't, then we'd have, we'd be in jeopardy of perhaps not getting the funding or having the argument from.
Correct. We would not be in compliance with both federal and state regulations, and we would just take action if we did not have a complete analysis and report available to all of you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, just two quick follow-up questions to confuse. The scholarships, is that for things like fees and things that we can have, like athletic fees or what's the
Scholarships
scholarship?
are college scholarships.
Oh, college scholarships, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what Lois was asking about.
Yeah.
Both high school scholarship, kids that they earn these scholarships go on to a 4-year school, 2 years of school.
And who awards the scholarship?
Other different organizations that.
So not us, we have no affiliation with the suggested.
So that there is no, not for one, but offered through our department, advertising.
Sure, sure.
CDL, things like that.
Yeah, CEF,
Yeah.
and those awards and kind of things.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Can I get just clarification on something? This monstrous undertaking, you said was required by federal and state law. Within the introduction, it talks about the state administrative code.
Right.
Is it a state DPI requirement?
It's a federal and state applies.
Oh, okay, so the federal regulations require it, and then it's done through the, okay.
I'm more here tonight.
Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Action to approve, speaking of a lot of work, action to approve policy updates.
Just, the committee is recommending waiving the first reading and approving these, but we had 3 that we sent for legal counsel review, and 2 of the 3 we were right, our legal counsel doesn't like, so I will be asking to not approve 3310 and 4310. They're about employee free speech, and our attorney would like to make some changes to those before we approve them. So I would make a motion to waive the first reading and approve all of the listed policies with the exception of 3310 and 4310.
Second?
Motion and second, do you have that there now?
I didn't get the second.
David.
Thank you.
Do you have the 3310 and the 4310?
Yeah.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously, so,
And we just want to thank staff, this one went really smooth. This is the first time we only had a meeting that was only like an hour and 10 minutes, so normally they go like 4. So thanks to staff for all their hard work getting it all in order so that when we came in, it went a lot smoother. So thank you all, everyone.
and then those other 2, we're looking for adoption next meeting, maybe you'll.
Yeah, they'll come back to committee with our attorney's recommendation.
Okay,
We just had some concerns, we weren't sure they were legal, and I guess we're right.
there you go, well, you guys should be good enough at it by now, I mean. All right, moving on to item D, action to approve resolution authorizing borrowing at $65 million and providing issuance and sale of general obligation promissory notes.
So I think what we'll do, item D and item F, I think we're gonna roll those 2 together, and we're still asking something approval, but we have a PowerPoint that we'd like to run through that speaks to multiple items.
Sure.
So at this time, Ben will start off, I think it's on, I think John starts off on the PowerPoint.
That's right.
And then Ben will jump in, and then we'll ask for approval on D and F.
John did the lights.
You did the lights and Ben controls the bar part?
Who's part of it? Who's Yep, you know, Rick, the kids have to plug in their Chromebook every night.
Just because Rick only uses it once a month at this meeting, it's plugged in. You should be good at like 16 or 17.
So this is a follow-up presentation that's been presented to the PNF and the B&G committees already. Basically looking at a solution for handling our issues with our HVAC system at Parkview and Thorson, and then also some of the replacement needs we have at our, for our boilers throughout our district as well. So basically, how do we get here? Looking at a long-term plan for capital improvements we identified a couple of urgent or critical needs within our district that we're looking at. The main one being HVAC, our HVAC system. We've gone over this a couple times in terms of their status right now is getting to the point where it's very hard to replace them and keep them up to date. So we're looking at replacing those as soon as possible. And then also looking at our boiler system too. Those are getting to the end of their life cycle, so we're at a point where we can replace those and see or realize some nice energy savings as part of that. The PNF committee and the B&G reviewed some funding options that range from using fund balance, taking out of general fund, all the way to looking at energy efficiency exemption. That's kind of the direction, the energy efficiency exemption, that's what we settled on as a solution for funding these projects. And we'll get into the details of what that looks like in the next couple of slides. So basically looking at energy efficiency exemption, basically what that is, it gives the authority for a public school district to go above their revenue limit in order to take care of energy efficiency projects that have been identified within the district. There's multiple different strings attached with a project like this. They have to be compliant with the regulations that are set up with it. And the project or proposal we have this evening, we feel falls within those guidelines to the T pretty much. So these are kind of some of the stipulations for what a project or what an EE must entail. It must improve the efficiencies for existing facilities, so you can't use it to purchase new facilities. It's for just using existing facilities that are within the district or equipment. Must lead to utility costs or avoidance excess costs or operational reductions. And then also looking at the expenditures or the savings over time must lead to something that covers the cost of the project itself within its useful life. So why at Cedarburg? Why it makes sense? Like I said, there's immediate needs that we have within the district that we have to address within the next year or two in order to avoid very costly repairs for upkeep. We're in a good financial position with our tax levy where we could take on this project with the energy efficiency exemption and still minimize the tax increase or tax impact within the community. This project still gives us the flexibility to down the road wrap into something larger if we wanted to. And then there's also with the state budget proposal some time limitations in terms of how long something like this would be available. The current proposal from the state right now has that going away, so we're looking at kind of more of an immediate need as a result of that. So now we're going to look at some of the projects that would be included with it.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the Building and Grounds Committee as well as the PNF Committee for the hours and hours of time that we spent discussing HVAC and boilers. I put you through a lot listening to this. You're probably just sick of it and dream about it at night. But what we're doing here is twofold. We're replacing our HVAC system at Parkview and Thorson, and that's removing the air handling units as well as the old pneumatic controls, and then the unit ventilators that were installed in the buildings back in 1996, which are ineffective and extremely noisy. They have an adverse effect on many, many students as well as teachers. So it's very unreliable. The air conditioning is failing. It's really timed, 1968, it's timed out, and we're ready to replace it. Additionally, what we're doing is we're replacing boilers, 12 total, from the high school, 2 locations. We have 2 central boiler spots, and Webster Transitional School, as well as West Lawn. So these are packaged boilers. We'll replace them with a higher grade boiler, which is going to give us 25 to 30 years of life. New technology, extremely efficient. We're really looking forward to the cost savings that could come along with this, and we'll get more information with our ESCO as we move forward with this process. The performance contract, as you noted, is required by this whole process. Putting the performance contractor in place required us to send out what was called an RFQ, a request for qualifications, And what we do with that is we just basically get a bio of the companies. We do some detailed research on them, we do some background checking, interview where we can, and then we kind of get a palette for how hungry they are to do the work for us. And what we've come down to is we want to make the recommendation to approve McKinstry, as they are multiple reasons for why I feel that they were one step above and that they were a little bit brighter than the other ones. Of the 5 that we sent out to, we only got 3 that were returned: Johnson Controls, Train, and McKinstry. Of those 3, really McKinstry and Train were the only 2 that were somewhat aggressive, with McKinstry being the much more aggressive, that wanted to get involved, wanted to move forward. We did some research on it. They're really aggressive in the state. They do a lot of work in the state. They provided us with a 2% discount in the overall project from their normal 7%, and reduced it down to 5%. We're very comfortable with their team members, interviewed their team members. They came and made appointments with me, wanted to be aggressive in looking at our facilities. They're one of the few people that did their due diligence and research unprompted, and that kind of shot them ahead of the other companies. So we're very comfortable making the recommendation to move ahead with McKinstry. Construction timeline, this is just a brief overview of what this might look like, from selecting the ESCO to project design, which really starts as of tonight in earnest, bidding out the project, releasing bids, finalizing details. Preliminary construction will begin in the spring, once we get into the boiler rooms without having to worry about heating, in the spring of 2018. Then we'll really go at it in that entire summer and look to complete it by September and the start of school, September of 2018. Okay.
So looking at financial options and then the timeline for it, the P&F committee reviewed different options we have for financing in terms of length of how much we can take on debt and kind of how it was structured. Basically, they settled on a 10-year borrow, not to exceed $5 million, and that's what the resolution is for tonight. Anticipated interest rate right around 3%, but that could change with the final sale of the bond, which would happen over the next couple of months. Basically, we would structure it so it would work with the debt we currently have within our district. So we'd structure where it'd be just interest for the first couple of years, and then it would flip up as our debt falls off from prior years. So it would be pretty flat tax impact overall. Right. Yep. As flat as it can be, or stable, is probably a better way to put it. As a part of the energy efficiency exemption, as we start to realize utilities savings from the performance contract, we have to work that into the debt payments that we have. So any kind of savings that we have is going to offset the impact or reliance that we have on the tax levy and go towards the payment for the debt. And like I said before, we'd structure the debt so it'd be callable after a couple of years, or would be able to pay it off early after a couple of years, so we could have the options of either refinancing it or working into a larger borrow if we wanted to, just giving us that flexibility if we wanted to. Looking at the timeline for this whole project, like I said, in March, P&F and BAG committees looked over the financing options and the recommendations that were to be brought to the board tonight. Tonight is the approval of the ESCO and the resolution for the debt, not to exceed $5 million. Once that resolution is put in place or approved by the board, there's a 30-day window for the community to petition against the resolution. That's part of state statute that's put in place there. So the timetable for that would start right away. Once that 30 days is fulfilled, or there's no petition against the resolution, the board is set to go on that front. Looking at May, we'd be looking at basically getting the final number for the performance contract, getting guarantee on actual savings from the utility costs over the next, pretty much the life of the equipment.
So what we would have May 2nd at the Building and Grounds Committee meeting, we would have what's called an ROM, it's basically a rough order of magnitude, and what we'll do with that is they'll present at the Building and Grounds Committee. We're only giving them a short spell of time with which to develop this, but they'll come forward with some numbers. They've already done some preliminary research on this, and they'll come forward with numbers that they're comfortable with. At the actual board meeting, they'll make a presentation. They'll present a maximum price as well as a guaranteed savings, and those will all come forward at the May 17th board meeting.
Right. Yep, so that'll be the May board meeting. Also at that May board meeting, we'd be presenting a resolution for the actual energy efficiency exemption to exceed the revenue limit. So we'd have those pieces in place. And then not on here, but in June, we'd have something for the actual sale of the bond, or sale of the bond once we actually know, or the note, once we know the actual amount from the performance contract, so. That's pretty much the overview of the energy efficiency exemption. We do have reps here from Eric, Brian Brewer, here to answer any questions related to the financing, and then we also have.
And Dave Lawbash is here from McKinney Street if there's any questions regarding the ESCO.
I think this is what this legislation was intended to be used for, and I understand there's been some abuse of it. This is clearly to the letter, and we worked really hard on that with your consultants and so forth, but you should be commended on it. It's a good use of the taxpayers' resources. They won't see an increase in their tax bill of any consequence, and as our old debt rolls off, then, like you said, you go from the interest payments to the principal. So I think that's great as well. You said it looks like 3%. Is there a chance that that's going to go up or down, or what's the forecast on that?
It's currently lower than that. Can I speak from here, or do you want me to?
No, that's fine.
Okay, it's currently, if we were in the market right now, you'd probably be closer to 2.5. So we use the 3%, knowing that rates will continue to move. The Federal Reserve Board moved their rate higher last month. There's a talk of, again, possibly in June. So, with rates as low as they are still, when we did your refinancings back in December of 2012, that was the lowest point up until late June of last year. There was a brief stint where it was low, but in the grand scheme of things, right now the 30-year Treasury is at 2.9, 30 years, 2.9. So the 3% that we're using, I feel like we're being conservative. Can't guarantee anything, but ideally, if the process moves along, we'll see two something, all inclusive costs for financing.
The $5 million number that we have out there, the initial reports that we're getting back, the feel that we're getting is that we're not going to go anywhere near exceeding that. We're looking to try and value engineer to stay below that. And we're working on doing that at this very moment. So that number is, we're very comfortable with that number. So.
I'll add to it from the building and grounds perspective and also the KNF perspective. When we discussed this concept, it was really our budgets are set up, as we know, to cover academic spending each year to keep the programs going, athletics, all the associated things like you saw tonight, some of the presentations and other expenses the district has. And John, you've done a great job over the decades of the building and grounds. I think we go to other school districts. I think ours are stellar. We did such a good job, even with major repairs like roofs, that you do a little bit every year to keep on top of it, where it's a difficult task to do that because roofs come up every, say, 20 years and they need to be completely redone. In this case, you broke it into smaller segments that make it manageable. But when we come to things like this, boilers and some unusual big costly items that do come up every 20 or in some cases 50 years, that's something our budget really isn't set up to do. So this energy exemption is a perfect opportunity to do that, to buy much more efficient equipment, which does save the district money in the long run and the short run. But also, as Ben mentioned, I think that money that we save comes back, has to go back to pay off the debt. It can't be used like a lighting upgrade that we did and go to fund other programs in the district. This has to explicitly go to pay down this debt, which is a great way to pay it off quickly. So it's a really good, I thought, the way you laid it out, and Brian, the way you laid out the 2 years of interest only, so that we've got the debt falling off on, what?
PAC.
The PAC was it, I think? The debt falls off on that before we start paying interest, and then the payments are really the same.
Yeah, that's for the whole
And then we can pay it off
referendum.
quickly that way, because we paid off the other referendum debts, we're going to do it in like 2019 or something like that, or 2021 maybe? 2020 or something like that, yeah. So it's a nice, really good time to do this, I felt, because of the short timeline, we can get it done, and we can pay it off quickly without increasing the taxpayers' costs. So it's a way to make a major home improvement, if you will, without having additional mortgage payments. And if I could add to that, I think the other thing that Faye was particularly attracted to was the built-in flexibility in this financing approach. That we have the ability to refinance, we have the ability to wrap into future financing. So in addition to what Kevin just said, we have a great deal of flexibility in how we steer this financing ship over the next number of years.
It also doesn't lock us into anything.
And that's what I meant.
And, sorry.
Yep.
And then I think, also to feedback on what Kevin was saying, 1968, just the fact that these things are still running is amazing, and it's quite an accomplishment. I mean, I was born in 68, and I'm barely running, so I know.
Think of me.
Right? Well, you got one more year to keep it going, right?
One at a time.
Pull the rabbit out of the hat one more time.
We actually have had a couple of repairs that we made on these things, so it's starting to show where it's gonna, hopefully we get through it.
Repairs get more costly, more time, you can't find the
Hard to find parts.
make the parts.
Right.
So, I
Exactly.
think it's great. Anyone else?
Definitely compliments to John and his staff for maintaining everything the way we have. Don't spend money. Thank you.
All right. So, with all that said, we can take a motion on item D. And that is to approve resolution authorizing borrowing not to exceed $5 million as was presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously. And then we'll move, skip E and go to F. And as part of that presentation, it was the company, and what's the name of your company,
McKinstry.
sir?
Okay, straight.
Street. And Brendan, you have the spelling for that, obviously, that. So, I will take a motion to approve McKinstry as the energy service company.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Bill.
Either way.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for all your hard work and taxpayers of Cedarburg will thank you for years to come.
As will the children.
Adventures. Yes. All right, moving on to item E, action to approve 2017-18 budget recommendations.
Yes, so at the last P&F meeting, the committee reviewed the budget recommendations for 17-18. In your board book documents, you can view the packet that was shared with the committee that basically reviews the timeline for the 17-18 budget process. Also looks over the line items for each item proposed for 17-18 budget for next year, and then also the impact statements for each one of those items. The process for the committee was basically to go through each one of those items, talk through them line by line, and go over the impact statements. Basically, with the board tonight, we're bringing a recommendation from the P&F committee to basically review the 17-18 budget recommendations and look at the scenario A items as something to commit to. Basically, breaking it down, what we did was put it into different scenarios based on the budget proposal or from the state. Current budget proposal from the state of Wisconsin for education funding is for $200 per pupil increase over previous years. This is a lot more than what we've seen in past years, over pretty much since Act 10. Budget increases have been anywhere between 0 to 100, 150 about. So this is one of the largest ones we've been proposed. But since it's not final yet, basically what we did was put a couple scenarios together in case any of that changes with the final budget. So what we looked at is a $100 per pupil increase, a $0 per pupil increase, and the proposed $200 per pupil increase, and put different priority and different items talking about. All the items in scenario A, we'd be able to work within our budget, no matter what happened from the state. Also, a lot of the items reflected in scenario A reflect work that we've done as a district and through administration this year to really reduce costs or try to increase revenue over this past year. So you'll see things in there. For example, like the 4K startup grant increase, that's a grant that Alan wrote for our 4K startup program, our 4K program. There's things in there like transportation costs for looking at families, discontinuing services from different vendors, stuff like that to help reduce costs for next year. So, and then with that too, there's also different programs that have been discussed in previous board meetings. Probably the biggest one being the one-to-one initiative for 17-18, which we've had no presentations on at previous board meetings. So.
Can I just summarize? Scenario A is assuming what kind of increase from Madison?
Zero.
Right. So it's the most conservative approach right now, since we're not sure what Madison ended up doing. What that is, let's assume there's no increase from Madison. We can fund all the items in A without any additional state aid. Items B assumed a $100 increase, and item C was if the state comes through with their $200 number, which who knows what it will be. So that's why you broke it out this way. The other thing, if you're looking on your chart there, he added this year the non-recurring expenses, that's the NR, which is helpful when you're looking at budget items. It's going to be a non-recurring expense, so that was helpful for people to walk through it and see. So.
Each scenario is a balanced budget. So scenario A is surplus of about 26, B is balanced, and then C actually has a little bit extra in there as a surplus that could be set aside for any kind of long-term projects or anything like that. Obviously, it's very early in the budget process as we look into 17-18. Not only is the state budget not finalized, but also staff turnover, going with that renewals for next year for benefits. That's a big piece that really doesn't get set until September, October. Enrollments in September. So there's a lot of pieces still in play that this budget can still move one way or another. So we feel pretty confident in those items in scenario A.
What effect will that have on the levy then? Scenario A, B, or C?
The levy really wouldn't be impacted by any of these scenarios too much. Basically, the biggest impact we will have for something like this is probably not for 17-18, it'd be for the year prior. What we're looking at for 17-18 is really either a flat tax impact or compared to 16-17 or decreasing. All forecasting I've seen so far is decreasing because 17-18 would be our first year that we realized our first enrollment from 4K. So it's 1 year delayed from the revenue limits enrollment count.
So just to be clear, if we did A, B, and C, you're forecasting a flat or a reduction
Yep.
in the levy, so that would be no increase or reduction to the property owners in Cedarburg. But to be further clear, we're only asking for approval on A, which is items 1 through 17, is that correct?
Correct. 1 through 17, 30, 31, and 32 are all fund balance commitment items. 31 and 32 we've discussed a little bit already. 30 is a little bit unique in terms of part of the energy efficiency interest costs.
Sure.
So that's something we don't really have to settle right now. That can be pretty flexible. We'll have more discussion on that. But the main items would be the ones through 17.
What do the items in the green add up to?
Just under 600,000. So the items in the green are either expense reductions or revenue increases. So I think we're right around 580,000. The other items in the green, line 18 and line 22, those represent underlying people increases. So those would be bumps in our revenue if those came through. So add them together, just under 600,000.
Okay.
And the way that the proposed budget or the proposed per pupil increase would be applied would be outside the revenue limit. So that's why we don't really see an impact in the tax levy.
Questions?
Just to be clear, this is only items A is what we're talking about tonight. Because at our meeting, we talked about A, B, and C, and there was questions still based on some of the other items that I personally had, but we're only talking about items A tonight.
Yeah, and for the items in B and C, we're really looking at addressing those questions, putting together a plan or proposal for future board meetings to really present those. Pretty much what we looked at for B and C, the only concern we have there might be some time sensitive ones, if we look at anything related to staffing. There's a timeline that we have to kind of adhere to if we want to get quality staff, we really need to start posting for certain positions. I would say line 21 is probably the one would be, the biggest one. We would have to have some kind of direction for in terms of posting, but the other items, could be settled a little bit over summer, so we have a little bit more of a timeline for those. Yep, math and short wire, which would be, something you'd want to post for and bring up.
So that would mean that 27 would also be one we got to watch here.
I also had a number of questions on B and C items, and I understand we're going to be addressing those later on, so I appreciate that. I had some questions as well on items 11, 12, and 13, the one-to-one initiative. I've got concerns about the sustainability and whether we're heading in the right direction with the product we're using, whether it's accomplishing the learning goals that were set forth initially, whether we're going to do money after that or not. I don't know. I don't have answers to those questions yet, and so I guess on those I would like to be able to set those three aside if we can, but if not, I understand if we have to move ahead, but I still have concerns about those three items.
And I agree with you, 12 and 13, moving forward in that direction. When we originally started this process, and I support the one-to-one, but when we originally started this process, I was assured that at some point if we wanted to go another direction, we could. And then by previous superintendent, and now I'm hearing, well, we're this far removed, we have to continue this way, and I don't know if that technology is the best for our students learning for their future business careers to be using Google. So I'm supporting those three.
I did look into it a little bit after our PF meetings that was brought up, and I talked to my daughter's in college now, and she uses the Google Docs all the time. So I personally, one of the things we talked about many years ago, was the Mac systems, which we did look at in price, and they were unbelievably expensive.
Well, I think that's one of the issues that we're not clear on. I'm not, from my perspective, I'm not saying it's good or bad or I'm against it or not. I just had questions, and I had questions about the process list as well, and I still do. I'm not sure how. I've got questions about them, and it's as a board member, I just think we try to do due diligence, get answers, and might be jumping on board, no problem, but not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, well, I know, I can speak to the Apple cost of the MacBooks, because we tend to wait until our kids go to college, because you get the best discounts, it's like a 1% discount or something like that, it's almost zero. I mean, and that's the big discount when you go to college, you can buy those from the university. But I do know the pricing on the Chromebook systems that we've got, that we purchased in the past, and we know that is a defined number. So I think we talked about the one-to-one, I think is an important initiative. We kind of, this has been a goal of ours for a number of years, and we kind of took the smaller steps so that we could afford it each year in our budgets, and started to add more grades as they keep going higher and higher. Anna gave a great presentation about doing the initiative, and I do see kids down in college and even in high school where keyboarding skills and computers and writing papers and research on computers is really a valuable thing. So Dave, I understand your points, I take them, but I personally think it's worth doing, and I would make a motion to accept all the scenario A items listed tonight in the preliminary budget.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Against?
Nay.
Nope.
Those are three?
So that's 4-3. Motion Motion passes.
Yeah, just a reminder, the budget, when it comes to that point, needs 2/3, correct? So you need 5 votes at that point for the
For
budget.
the final budget?
Right.
Right. All right, moving along.
Mr. President, before we move on,
Yeah.
point of order. To the extent that 3 of our colleagues have voted against this proposition, particularly focused on items 11 through 13 in Proposition A, I think it is important that they identify their concerns, list their questions, and let us have a full review before we get anywhere near the budget approval. Because I'm hearing concerns, but I'm not really hearing substance, and I'm concerned that this will drag on, and then we get to a budget approval. And as Mr. Leach has just pointed out, now we have a situation where we need more votes and whatever. I don't think that's the way this board operates. So I strongly encourage that we take those steps now.
Right, and I agree, and the people that had the dissenting opinion on that have taken steps to do that. So that's in process, and the district staff will include all this on the responses to those questions, and they are making some timely inquiries. So I think we all agree with you, Phil, and that'll definitely be done.
Are we clear from a personnel standpoint how we move forward? We still don't want to extend no job offers, I know there won't be money for a position after the fact.
Yeah, if you look at number 12, that's the staffing.
Yeah.
For the tech specialist, so that's a little more time sensitive in terms of looking at the timeline for that.
So I think when we were, if I recall correctly, that position is in need, given the status of our tech department, regardless of whether we move into whether it's a Google environment, whether it's a PC environment, or whether it's an Apple environment, the tech position is in need.
Todd, I would say, even though I said no, I think you have to move ahead with it because you have a 4-3 vote on that. I think the board has spoken majority on that.
All right.
So to that point, your question, Conway, we move forward.
Just to reiterate, this is the first part of the process for the whole budget for next year. So in June, we're looking at a preliminary budget approval. On October, we have the final budget approval. So there's still a lot of moving parts that are part of this process. So that's why we have those other items listed on that agenda too, or that list. But some of those items can come off there, and it can be pretty flexible. So
When do you anticipate that a budget number would come from the state?
it really ranges when they sign the budget. They said they like to give them in the summer, but it's dragged on before fall. So
Yeah, this is a 2-year budget, they're going to sign
it's your budget. So the nice thing is, once it's signed, we know our number for 17, 18, but also 18, 19. So the kind of the question marks we have that we have going into this year, we won't have as much for 18, 19. So.
All right. All right, moving on to anything else? Sorry. Covered well enough. Action to approve Global Scholars Japan trip.
So in your board packet, there's a recommendation to approve the global scholarship.
Excuse me, one second. Does anyone from the public have anything to say? Anything else? Yeah. We went past the 8:15 mark with that discussion, so. Anything at all? Anyone? Anything? All right. Mr. Gagnon.
That's right. Sure. So item G, it's a recommendation the board approve the global scholarship Japan trip for the summer 2018. This trip, I believe, was vetted through the curriculum council.
Curriculum committee has reviewed it and recommended approval. We asked, and we took a lot of
just a recommendation.
The recommendation. So I'll move to approve.
Second?
Motion.
Discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always ask this, every time we have a trip overseas. What's the arrangement, are we staying in a hotel or do we go to people's homes?
We'll be staying at hotels.
Excellent.
So what's the ratio of chaperones to students?
District has a policy of 8 to 1. The company we had is 6 to 1.
Great. Alright. Motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries unanimously.
So, curriculum committee, thank you very much for your work. Jeff, Elmiger, thanks for staying for the last action item.
And I do applaud the group, Jeff and the committee for doing this early, because it is a fair amount of money to raise, and it's really helpful for families who might have been, well, we gotta raise the money for this, they have time for their students to do that, so I think it's a great idea to do that, to be helpful on the group to go.
Jeff, if you did get a phone call from your festivals committee,
Tomorrow night.
you'll be hearing from them, way to raise some money.
Yeah, I'll be meeting them tomorrow at 6. Thanks.
I recommend it.
Lemonade.
All right. Item 10, committee reports. Personnel and Finance Committee, Mr. Gray, I know we've gone over a lot. Do you have anything to add?
I missed the April one to the March 29th. The only other piece we talked about was the food service audit and short-term disability coverage. And I believe the short-term disability coverage is going to come to the board. And then the food service audit, I think it's going to come to the board once first. We reviewed that.
Yeah, we just presented it.
Like I had last week, so.
It was good news overall. So, Laura, her team, and members of the business office did a great job getting everything together.
All right, B&G Committee, Mr. Kennedy.
We really covered the concepts tonight, some of the things we talked about with borrowing and where things are at. And as we reiterated, the work that Jeff has done over the years has been, puts us in a really, really good position where we are to the kind of point where facilities that plug along and move along nicely, and I appreciate his efforts on that. I'm doing that for us.
Absolutely. Curriculum and instruction, Mr. Beach.
Just a couple things we didn't cover tonight. Applicant board made a presentation to us, learning framework, talking about the importance of community service, fine arts, capstone experiences, and cultural learning. There'll be more to come on that in the future from him. Also, some new resources the committee is reviewing for some news courses and AP comparative government, and a science class from a scientist. We're reading textbooks right now. And the German-American Partnership Program, we have a presentation on that, where the school partners with a school in Germany, and they're looking at them coming, their students coming here in 18, with the possibility of our students going there for homestays in 19, but that will be coming to the entire board at the committee of the whole meeting.
As long as they live in a hotel, right?
And the only other one is the Tech Ed program review. We had a brief update on that, but that will also be coming to the board committee or with some.
All right, P&F Committee, Mr. Gray, I think we went over most of that as well. Or no, the double there. That's the 19th, so that is,
Yeah, we did cover all those items tonight.
okay. And then April 20th, Policy Committee, I think we went over most of that.
We're good.
All right, then I will take a motion to adjourn into executive session where we will approve the minutes, where we will cover items pursuant to 19.851E, 19.851C, 19.851B, 19.851D, and we might adjourn into open session. Anticipate the board may take action to approve the teacher resignation.
Convene the closed session.
Motion in a second. Did you get the second there, Brendan?
It was Bill.
All those in favor? Aye. Against? against? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Some board members, I think, are going to decide.